जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन। यामुना तीरा वनचारी। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन। यामुना तीरा वनचारी। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोविंद श्याम कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी महारानी की जय। समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति विकास स्वामिनित नामने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनित नामने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवान् विचारिणे विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश धारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे। हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखम करति वाचालं मंगलम गायति गिरे मत्कृपात् तमो वन्दे शीघ्रं तारणं परमानन्दं श्री चैतन्येश्वर। Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome to the seventh session of the online reading of Patropadesa, Volume 1. I don't know why devotees are getting. Is there any other sessions going on? Something like that? Are devotees able to hear me properly? Okay. Okay. We'll start reading from page number 131. Sorry, I mentioned in this one as 130. In WhatsApp message is 130. It's 131. 15th May 1998. I mentioned as 2nd May 1998. So we have read yesterday. I would like to start with this nice quote. Fifth May 1998. Yes, disciples are a burden for the spiritual master, but it is a burden of love. Just as a child is a burden for the parents, but they take pleasure in it. Seeing their child struggle, make mistakes, and gradually grow up to become responsible citizens have their own children also. Disciples should try not to be a bad burden by misbehaving. 15th May 1998. Thanks to your letter and appreciation, you asked me to shed some light on the Hatha and Ashtanga yogas and their effectiveness in controlling the sex desire. I do not know in detail what Patanjali has to say about it. I have not studied his works in detail. I only know what Srila Prabhupada has stated about him. I am confident that for my purposes and for anyone else's, that is enough. For more details, please read The Path of Perfection by Srila Prabhupada. The Hatha Yoga system is a mechanical means to attempt to subdue the senses, although some effect may be produced by it. It is extremely difficult to follow all the practices in the correct manner, especially in the modern age. For instance, the first rule in Hatha Yoga is to go to an undisturbed place. If someone tries to control the senses by Hatha Yoga system without following this first rule, whatever incremental advancement he may make by imperfectly practicing breathing and asanas will surely be washed away by the gross sexual propaganda that is everywhere in the modern age. Therefore, Harer Namaiva Kevalam. In this age, even more so than in others, the only way to make spiritual progress is to take shelter of Rishikesha, the controller of senses, by chanting his holy names. 18th May 1998. I am sorry I cannot fully perform devotional service. But the little I do, I hope Krishna, Prabhupada, and you are pleased. If you could kindly give me any advice on obtaining Krishna Prema, I would be very much indebted. I feel the same way about not being fully able to perform devotional service. How much can we tiny, limited beings serve the unlimited Supreme Lord? But we have to try. I am trying to serve Srila Prabhupada by connecting others to his teachings. So I can only recommend you to go on following them and thus get Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Then gradually development will be there up to the point of Krishna Prem, as outlined in Bhagavad Gita, as it is 4th chapter, 10th shloka purport. It takes time to reach the goal and guidance is required. As you are approaching me for guidance, I shall do my best to impart it as I have understood by hearing from and serving Srila Prabhupada. I am trying to go on book distribution, but my scores are extremely low, which shows my devotion. It is necessarily true that low scores indicate low devotion. I used to go on book distribution with a godbrother whose scores were for few months very low, but he really wanted to do well because he wanted to play Srila Prabhupada by his service. So he kept on praying and kept on trying. After about 2 years of struggling like this, Krishna suddenly blessed him and he became one of the top book distributors and maintained that standard for several years until he changed to another service. So please keep trying and go on praying. There is no saying that whatever wonderful things Krishna can do through us, if we are simply sincere to serve him. Hope to see you very soon. Srila Prabhupada used to recommend seeing a sadhu by hearing his instruction. If possible, you may contact S. Das on com. He is organizing a tip ministry of my lectures. Hoping this meets you well and happy serving the Sankirtan mission in the most important city in the world. 19th May 1998. These days I am in a really strange mood and I have problems with my mind. Please read Srila Prabhupada's books, especially Gita, very carefully for at least an hour daily. This will help us tremendously. 24th May 1998. I am happy that you are very happy in Krishna consciousness. Actually, Krishna consciousness means to be happy by doing everything for Krishna's pleasure. We also become happy. So if you are happy in your present service, please continue with that and that will make me most happy. Don't cut yourself off completely from preaching though, because that is the life of our movement and the mission of Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. I'm also very happy that you became very happy in the holy dhams. Both C and K have written expressing the same thing. I wanted you to come to the holy dhams. I knew that you would not understand how wonderful it would be until you came, and that you would be very enthused by doing so. So, yes, please do try to come to Mayapur and Vrindavan year after year, and I will be happy to see you there also. Actually, I was invited to come to summer camp in Croatia, but because the date was put back to beginning of September, I wrote and said that I probably wouldn't be able to attend as I probably would be back in India by then. However, my plans may change. Let's see what happens. Even if I turn up at the last minute without much prior arrangement, then probably the organizers could find a few minutes to speak and there might be few hearers also. 24th May 1998. At the end of a class in V, you stated that Srila Prabhupada had said not to use Gita Press Gitas, even though it is known to everyone that I regularly do use. I felt a little peeved about this and though about mentioning to you. But I considered that as you were leaving away anyway and it wasn't such a big issue, it wasn't worth doing so. I had mentioned this in passing to Prabhu, but did not intend that he should broadcast it. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will ask Prabhu to be more discreet in the future. You may also learn from this incident how to speak without proper consideration. sorry, you may also learn from this incident about how to speak with proper consideration of time, place, and circumstance. I certainly don't hate you, and I consider you all success in your ongoing endeavors to reach the lotus feet of Krishna. Young and I was also once young and brash. Now I am older, a little less brash. I have taken it up on myself to try to help upcoming devotees not to make the same mistakes that I have. Please don't feel bad for that. 24th May 1998. Book distribution in India is going on in pretty much the same way it has for many years. That is, it is not super organized nor it is strongly pushed, but still a lot of it goes on. You are right about the lack of communication and cooperation between the centers. Somehow or other, that's the way things are in ISKCON in India. There is no sign of things changing soon. Which brings me to your question about my plans and vision for book distribution in India. I'm basically doing what I can what I'm basically doing what I can to develop it in the small sphere to influence that I have, which is basically in G, working out of ISKCON B and V. I have a few brahmacharis both from India and the West which are working under me. I have a few brahmacharis both from India and the West who are working under me. We have a mini Padayatra which is concentrating on book distribution, one bus party fully dedicated to book distribution, and another party that is concentrates on college preaching but also does a substantial amount of book distribution. I'm always stressing to the men that here cultivation of devotees and book distribution must go on side by side. There is a huge field that cannot be covered by a few brahmacharis that we make. We have to cultivate an interest in people and make them devotees. And naturally, when they get inspired, they will want to go out and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. This is the major factor in Mayapur running up such massive scores because they have been cultivating devotees in Namahattas for so many years. They have a huge army of preachers who all contribute to the Sankirtan effort. Of course, there is a similar system in the West with contact Sankirtan. With France, Italy, and other areas, B. Das, the ex-GBC, was developing this systematically and very successfully until he unfortunately left his service. I don't know what the situation is in other parts of the world, but I feel that congregation preaching and book distribution could, in all areas, move much closer together as there is tremendous potential to make devotees all over the world. The effect of book distributing Srila Prabhupada's books for more than 20 years has created a situation in which devotees can be made anywhere among all classes of people. You must remember the almost forgotten GBC resolution for a few years ago, encouraging ISKCON leaders to inspire their followers for book distribution, and in that it is stated that leaders should stress the importance of making devotees because making more devotees means making more book distributors. There is a lot of emphasis in India now. There is a lot of emphasis in India now on developing congregation preaching, and literally hundreds of people are coming to the level of initiation. ISKCON C is famous for its congregation program, and that was also the basis of their recent debut success in book distribution. They got hundreds of congregational members out distributing books. I am sure you are aware of all these things, but I just thought to share my realization about them with you. Oh, I'm sorry, so many devotees are unable to connect it. Oh, Krishna, I was just going on reading it. Sometimes, if I can't hear or I log out and back in, it's okay. You can try this. Oh, Krishna, I'm very, very sorry. I just No video. Yes, no video. What is the point of seeing my face? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Nothing is visible, audible, Prabhu. For me and some other devotees too. Hare Krishna. Is everybody try twice, but same condition, Prabhu. Okay, anyhow. My microphone is okay. My webcam is okay. Are devotees able to hear me now? Oh, Krishna. Already 4 minutes, but no progress. What happened? You're not able to hear? Oh, Krishna. Vivek, I have given access to the mic. You can.
Hare Krishna.
Some devotees can hear clearly.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, you're not able to hear me properly?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I'm not able to see or hear anything.
What happened? I am. My video is on.
Shall I continue,
Patropadesa.
Prabhu? Can you please text me the page number?
Are Baba.
Hare Krishna.
You're able to see the this one?
Hare Krishna.
Vivek, are you able to see the
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, if
material?
you can hear me, can you please text me the page number, Prabhu? No, nothing is visible, Prabhu. Nothing is visible. Only
what?
black screen, Prabhu. Only black screen, no audio, nothing. And some other Prabhuji, Srinivas Rao Prabhuji is also facing the same issue, I think.
I can see material. I can see. Okay, anyhow, you can read. We can hear you. Okay, devotees, Srinivas ji are able to hear me. Srinivas Rao Sannela.
Oh, but I can't hear anything, Prabhu.
Are Baba. Okay, you do one thing. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, can you please send me the page number, Prabhu? From which page number I have to read? One
136.
From 26th, 26th May 1998. Generally it is understood that the Mahamantra is praying to Krishna and his internal potency for engagement in their service. Lord Chaitanya, in the mood of a devotee, also chanted this mantra. Of course, Krishna and Lord Chaitanya are not different. So chanting the name of Krishna also refers to Sri Krishna Chaitanya. The Supreme Lord is always present with his energies and is to be approached through his internal potency. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Lord and his internal potency, Krishna with Radha combined. However, in Lord Chaitanya's Leela, Radharani also appears separately as Gadadhara Pandita. Some devotees worship Gaura Gadadhara. This is a very confidential form of worship in which Gadadhara Pandita is assisting Lord Chaitanya to release the mellows of devotion to himself. These are all highly esoteric subjects, but the basic understanding is that the Supreme Lord is to be approached through his devotees. This could actually form the subject of an essay, but only devotees advanced enough in understanding of Gaura Tattva and Rasa Tattva would be able to appreciate it. In the meantime, we can all go on chanting the Hare Krishna mantra before the deities of Sri Sri Gauranitai, knowing that they are pleased with this chanting and understanding that they are non-different from the mantra that they also chant. You asked, is praying to the Guru the way to remove all the anarthas from the heart? It is an important part of the all-inclusive process of devotional service. Our regular hearing and chanting and other services must simultaneously continue. But you are right, the mercy of the Guru is essential. Otherwise, other processes will not be effective. And praying to the Guru helps to invoke that mercy. It is not that the Guru is more powerful than Krishna, but that Krishna is pleased with those who take shelter of his devotees and favors them accordingly. And because I am taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, you may also take shelter of remembering and serving me, seeing me always in my position of service to Srila Prabhupada, who is himself in service to his Guru. This is the Parampara system. 4th June 1998. The news of your preaching activities there are most inspiring. I feel as if I should immediately run down there to be with you all. But I have other commitments, and indeed increasing commitments throughout the world. Most important is that you are steadily fixed in service and in an ashram best suited to your present position, where you serve and the exact nature of your service is a detail. 27th June 1998. You have written that the best way to get an answer to your personal problems is to ask the local devotees. Try to get the solution in my or Prabhupada's books or, or to ask me personally. But you think that asking me personally is best because I cooperate perfectly with the Paramatma. It is always auspicious and best to follow the advice of spiritual master and in making major decisions for one's personal life. Even though one may consult with others, they should be confirmed by the spiritual master. But inversely proportionate to the increase in the number of my disciples is my capacity to become intimately involved in their personal problems. It is therefore incumbent on the disciples to form relationships and trust with those around them so that they may be guided. In general, problems of a local nature are best sorted out by consulting with devotees in the local vicinity who can better judge the situation than I, who am unfamiliar with the circumstances. You should also consider carefully the gravity of the problem before bringing it to me. It is the specific duty of the spiritual master to instruct the disciple how to go beyond all problems by becoming Krishna conscious. But it is not his duty to get involved in the temporal affairs of his disciples, although he may give advice about them, also just to help his disciples advance. The disciple should not bring every little personal problem before the spiritual master. Nor is it proper for the disciple to neglect to inform him of a major problem that could markedly influence the disciple's life or impair his spiritual progress. Often disciples approach their spiritual master to get a definitive solution to their personal problems. For instance, should I marry or should I not? And if so, who to? Devotees expect that by doing so, all their problems will be solved. This is not necessarily true. Even if the disciple perfectly follows the Guru, he should not think that all his problems will be finished by doing so. As long as we live in this material world, there will be problems. For instance, by following the advice to marry, a disciple enters a situation of multiple problems. And even if the advice is not to marry, still there will be problems. The spiritual master should be approached with the understanding that he can ultimately solve all problems by giving advice on how to get out of this material world by surrendering to Krishna. He may also give advice on personal problems to direct the disciple so that his material situation may be more favorable for advancing in the surrendering process. The spiritual master is not omniscient like the Paramatma. He cannot predict how others will behave in future or what exactly the result of following his advice will be. Many spiritual masters in our movement who previously engaged in arranging their disciples' marriages have stopped doing so, seeing that quite often the marriages did not work out, and the disciples blamed the spiritual master for the arrangement. In such a case, it is not actually the fault of the Guru that the marriage did not work out, but that of the disciples for not following the guidelines in Srila Prabhupada's books for successful Krishna conscious family life. I have elaborated on the marriage question in this text because the most personal problems center around this issue. It certainly is a difficult one, especially in the modern age and especially in the Western countries. I am very concerned about my young unmarried disciples, especially in the West, and of their future marital status. From the Vedic cultural viewpoint, it is an anomaly that young ladies remain unmarried after puberty. There should be at least one person whom they fully trust and can turn to at all times, and that is their husband. We live in a society far deviated from the Vedic ideal, but it is that ideal that we have to work to establish. In Vedic culture, spiritual masters instruct the men, who then instruct their wives. Within the joint family unit, young women would be guided by the elders of the family, particularly her mother in law. Modern society is unnecessarily complex and has caused a great increase in the physical and mental problems of its members. An important part of the mission of the Krishna consciousness movement is to establish a civilization in which people can live more simply and be close to God, and thus giving people the opportunity to live far less
Lives.
compromising lives. My upcoming book, Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life, is meant to give an idea of such a civilization. Although I don't have many disciples compared to other gurus in our movement, I am on the whole very happy with the level of seriousness and dedication of my disciples. I pray to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna to always guide you properly and thus reciprocate the trust you have placed in me. As for your ongoing spiritual crisis, I can give instructions and advice, pray for you, and plead that you make the determination to overcome the lower self with the higher. But ultimately, it is up to you to surrender to Maya or Krishna. Please deliberate carefully and decide to do that which is for your eternal self interest. It is only after many lifetimes that we get the chance to associate with devotees and serve Krishna. Please do not waste this opportunity simply for the sake of some hoggish sense gratification. I can see even now that trying to go for sense gratification instead of becoming more Krishna conscious is actually bringing me closer to Krishna consciousness, because finally I will get some realization that there is no happiness in leading karmi or material life. I will probably just get more attached to Krishna consciousness. Please don't try to justify your nonsense by saying that it will make you more Krishna conscious. If you want to be Krishna conscious, please follow the if you want to be Krishna conscious, follow the process and stop all this nonsense. Initiation means commitment. Please don't take Krishna so cheaply and think that you can take him or leave him at whim, as you can a boyfriend. 24th July 1998. I agree with the great majority of senior devotees in our movement that Guru issues in our movement need careful looking at. There are a number of serious theological and ecclesiastical issues that need
Ecclesiastical.
addressing, especially in
Ecclesiastical.
the light of followers of several ISKCON gurus.
Okay.
My position is this: I know who I am and I am not a Mahabhagavat. I hope I have never been perceived as trying to convey such an impression. I am a follower of Srila Prabhupada, who is a Mahabhagavat, and thus my duty is to guide my disciples to follow as Srila Prabhupada taught us. I am confident that if I am sincere in doing so, Prabhupada and Paramatma will give me the intelligence how to properly do so. It appears that Prabhu favors a system whereby Ritvik gurus initiate but have very little responsibility to guide or uplift the disciple. I find this overly impersonal. It is clear that Srila Prabhupada wanted his disciples to initiate. With initiation goes a commitment to the disciple. I consider it my personal responsibility to guide my disciples and be involved with their ongoing spiritual progress. In doing so, however, I do not demand exclusivity and encourage my disciples to also hear from and serve other properly situated disciples of Srila Prabhupada. I heard from Prabhu that in the Sri Sampradaya there is a pranama mantra as follows. I offer my respects to my spiritual master, who is worshipable because he is a faithful follower of Sri Pada Ramanujacharya. I would feel comfortable with such an understanding vis-a-vis Srila Prabhupada. Personally, I am nothing. Yogayata vichare kichu nahi pai tomara karuna sara. But because I am representing Srila Prabhupada, I must instruct as I have heard from him and may receive respect up to the level of worship as is the etiquette, but only with the understanding that all honor is to be offered up to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is a guru, and on his order I am also a guru. Garuda is a bird, a sparrow is a bird, but not all birds are on the same level, nor all gurus. Much discussion about this is going on now in our society. Please do not become confused. Go on with your hearing, chanting, preaching, and other services. Let us see what the outcome is. I am confident that it will all be for the best. Lord Chaitanya wants Krishna consciousness spread to every town and village, and ISKCON is his medium for doing so. Our society has been through upheavals before, and will no doubt go through more in future also. So stick to the basics and don't be discouraged. Seventh, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Shubhankarji, are you able to hear me? If you are, then please continue. From 7th August 1998.
7th August 1998. The best news therein is your continued enthusiasm for book distribution. Srila Prabhupada wrote one letter to a disciple in which he said to make lifetime plans for book distribution. In other words, this is something which we have to do throughout our lives. If we try, Krishna will give us the intelligence to increase our book distribution more and more. Already the effect is there. Your book distribution is widely known among the upper classes in age. Now see how to increase more and more. Good news also that so many devotees are giving you the association and that preaching is going on nicely in so many ways in age because you are sincere. Krishna is sending you devotees to associate with. Both in the matter of Back to Godhead and BBD, you are having difficulties. It is an unfortunate fact that our society is often lax in such areas. Despite our external display of togetherness, we are actually disorganized in many ways. What is the problem? Lack of Krishna consciousness? Lack of intelligence? Laziness? I'm not sure, but it is something we are all living with. All I can suggest is to remain patient and keep up the pressure until you get what you need. I discovered that with Bombay BBT, to place an order usually was not sufficient. I would have to go personally to get the books, so you are not the only one suffering in this way. I am planning a South India trip this winter. I suggest you write all your questions down in a notebook. Then we can sit together for some time and go through them all. Sometimes I'm more busy, and sometimes less so. But hopefully, I will never be so busy that I can go round to answering your letters. Thanks for your book distribution card. Just find out the ways and means to bring people in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada and Krishna will bless you. You are asking for my blessings. Whatever I have to convey, let you be blessed. I have no strength on my own. I have no strength of my own. But if I can form a channel to the ocean of Prabhupada's and Krishna's mercy, that is my only chance to help others. 9th September 1998. It is not true that listening to Karmi music, watching Karmi sports, etc. are necessary so that our minds do not flip out from the pressure of trying to be Krishna conscious. Rather, if we actually want to be Krishna conscious, we should strive to perform our only activities that are favorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness and should reject those that are unfavorable. Do you really want to be Krishna conscious? If so, follow the advice of the Acharyas, not that of foolish neophytes. Rupa Goswami has outlined the whole process of development in Krishna consciousness in his Nectar of Instruction and Nectar of Devotion. Nowhere does he recommend indulging in Karmi music or sports. Rather, he enjoins that we give up such things and replace them with hearing and chanting about Krishna. Even if we feel no taste for hearing and chanting, we should go on with it, and it will act, just as sugar candy acts to cure jaundice. You state that you have an inclination towards philosophy. This should be developed in a systematic way. If you take up a study or program of Srila Prabhupada's books, for instance by following the Bhakti Shastri study guide or by taking a correspondence course, this should regulate your study, give you a fixed goal, and save you from nonsense karmi music. 21st September 1998. I have heard from several devotees that to eat such prasadam which was cooked by a Mataji is not auspicious for a brahmachari. Srila Prabhupada never said that. It has always been standard in ISKCON that all devotees take prasada without consideration of whether it was cooked by a woman or not. Who is introducing these speculations? Let them starve. Please answer that what the Vedas say about it. In Vedic culture, brahmacharis beg door to door and receive food from housewives. They are trained to see all women as their mothers. 21st September 1998. Dear Gurudev, I want to ask your permission to perform Agnihotras. Actually, Gauranitai are more satisfied with preaching and Sankirtan. I think that especially in a small temple, it is best to concentrate on these essential activities rather than peripheral ones. 25th September 1998. During the last visit of ex-Swami in Belgrade, G,
Bhaktin,
want,
Bhaktin ji.
G
No,
wanted to.
actually,
G,
Bhakta is there, na? So when Mataji is there, that is called as Bhaktin. So, Bhaktin ji. Okay.
okay. G, G wanted to have a darshan with him.
Okay.
I was there as encouragement and help. So he wanted me to write this letter, explain the situation and ask you for advice. She has a restaurant where they serve chicken, fish and alcohol. She has a partner so they can run the restaurant together and they divide money earned from it. She is also ordering for the last 2 years some kind of bread from the temple for that restaurant. She knows devotees for 3 years. She is keeping them mostly with money and other
Help,
ways too.
helping them, not keeping.
She is helping them mostly with money and other ways too. Now she wants to advance more in spiritual life, and her question is how much karma she gets from the restaurant. Does this prasadam distribution help or makes her karma less? Do you have some advice for her to what to do? She has old parents. She has to take care of them. She is 40, difficult to start something new, but she has to maintain herself. Ex-Swami suggested to separate money earned from meat and alcohol and give to partner and keep the rest for herself. But that could not be enough for living. Do you have some suggestion, advice? A difficult situation. I can offer two examples of how Srila Prabhupada responded to similar situations. In Fiji, when Vasudeva Prabhu became a devotee, he said to Srila Prabhupada that he would now have to stop selling canned meat in his shop. Apparently, Srila Prabhupada replied that nothing had to change. The next story I heard directly from the devotee involved. He had just become a life member in Hyderabad and asked Srila Prabhupada about whether or not he should continue his business of date tree cultivation for producing toddy, cheap alcohol. Srila Prabhupada thought about it and then said, "You have to maintain your family." That man therefore continued his business and eventually retired and is now initiated by Jayapataka Maharaj. Considering this, I would have I do Considering this, I would say that if there is no other way around it, she may just have to continue, pray to Krishna for forgiveness, and look forward to the day when she no longer has to maintain her parents and could then maybe give up the business and join full time. According to fate, some people taking to Krishna consciousness find themselves in situations that are contradictory to the principles and despite their unwillingness cannot extract themselves. There are, for example, many instances of prostitutes who were devotees. This should not be taken as a general example for others to follow or for devotees in general to use as an excuse for not following the principles. Her question is how much karma she gets from that restaurant. As Krishna states in the Gita, the ways of karma are difficult to ascertain. Karma is burned away by bhakti. According to the level of her sincerity, Krishna will reciprocate. I suggest that she use money thus earned only for maintaining her parents, giving donations and maintaining herself at the minimum standard. No luxuries. Any sense gratification indulged in from such earnings will certainly invite karmic reactions. Another point to consider is that even most devotees who earn money by relatively clean means do so by serving grossly sinful people. For instance, a bank worker serves those who finance wars, slaughterhouses, etc. Does this prasadam distribution help or makes her karma less? I don't like the idea of prasada, bread, being mixed with fish and chicken. 8th October 1998. One significant piece of news is that most of the foreign devotees in the area are getting answers about a possible upcoming war between India and Pakistan. You may know that in April 4th, 1975, Mayapur Conversation, Prabhupada indicates that the next world war will start between India and Pakistan, and various happenings in the news and the general mood of the public suggest that it may be imminent. Of course, we all aspire to be fully surrendered like you and just go on preaching without being distracted. But personally, I don't want to be a foreigner caught in war-torn India, and once it starts, it may be difficult to get out. So I have been seriously considering moving to New Zealand in the near future. A, B, C, and D are thinking along similar lines. I know it I know it may all sound like utter craziness, but still I'm afraid to be caught unprepared. I also thought that you should be kept posted about the consciousness of the devotees here, even if, especially if we are crazy. Now I am working on filing some of the miscellaneous references for the etiquette book, including that file you gave containing many references from COM. When you asked me to send you some files, I could not immediately because I wanted to add these miscellaneous references to any file that I may send. When BGP returns, I will send something because I have to send it through Wincom. Actually, Y is no longer living in the temple, so he doesn't have time to do that work. Also, we don't have an extra computer. What with A traveling here and there, we tried to get yours from Delhi, but were not successful. I never heard from F. Prabhu, except immediately after sending him the book 3 months ago, to say that he received it. I will be glad if we can get this etiquette book in print soon and distribute it. I am anxious that something may happen and we may not get to complete it. Your return will be a much needed spiritual boost, as many of the devotees here are lacking in enthusiasm and not so much engaged. During much of the 1980s, where During much of the 1980s, there was much war fever generated in the press, and it just seemed a matter of time before Indo-Pak War broke out, which it didn't. This is all propaganda produced by political purposes. If there was really a serious threat of immediate war in India, it would certainly be big news in the West. But it isn't even an issue. Nothing about it in the papers. I have been inviting devotees to come travel with me in the winter South India, and no one has expressed such fears. During the 1980s, many people were convinced that American-Russia nuclear war was inevitable, and even made elaborate arrangements wasting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to stock food and illegal arms and ammo. There may indeed be an upcoming war, but it is not so certain that we should base our life plans on it and thus spoil valuable time and energy that should be focused in the service of Krishna. So please don't buy your tickets for New Zealand yet. At least wait till I come, and then we can all discuss together. If need be, I will go with you. If not, better you stay with me. I will be glad if we can get this etiquette book in print soon and distribute it. Me too. Your return will be a much needed spiritual boost, as many of the devotees here are lacking in enthusiasm and not so much engaged. Why? Are they all dreaming of New Zealand and all the beautiful young girls there who will relieve them from all distress? Not so much engaged is very dangerous. They should immediately start daily Harinam for at least as many hours as they are unengaged. Even if they go round and round the same bazaars 3 times a day, it's better than sleeping and dreaming of Maya. 9th October 1998. Trust no future, however pleasant or unpleasant. 13th October 1998. The local hospitals pay for those who donate blood. Blood can be donated once in 3 months. I may be able to muster up quite a number of people to donate blood, around 50 or so. All the Lakshmi earned all the Lakshmi earned by the individuals can be donated for spreading Krishna consciousness. I have heard of some Christian missionaries who organize blood camps and collect the Lakshmi for social work. Even if I am able to muster up around 50 devotees only once in 6 months out of our congregation of over 200, we can easily earn 5,400 US dollars. This
20,000 dirhams. That is called dirhams.
dirhams.
Hmm.
These funds can be used for many purposes: donations to Guru Maharaj, temples, donation, subsidy of Gitas in India, organized conventions for satsangis like the one being organized at KL, audio cassette, video cassette, library from tape ministries, welfare of satsangis in trouble in case of emergency, etc. In addition, the recipients of the blood get Krishna conscious blood, chanting and prasad. I have heard before the Sheikh or whenever he had to have blood transfusion and would go to Pakistan especially to have Muslim blood. Kindly advise if this would be okay and not go against any scriptural injunctions. According to G. Prabhu, it's not so good. According to X Swami, it's not so bad. According to B.V. Swami, Yathechasi Tathakuru, but at the same time could spend in preaching to others, who, if convinced, will give their blood, as well as their Lakshmi, to Krishna. It is better to give your mercy to others in the form of Krishna Katha than in the form of blood, even if your blood is prasada enriched. Never, Nevertheless, if if you can raise substantial funds without much entanglement and use it all in directly Krishna conscious way, it's not such a bad idea. 29th October 1998. You have asked how devotees can develop self-confidence and self-esteem, but we do not find such terms anywhere in Srila Prabhupada's books or throughout the Vedic literatures. That we should develop self-confidence and self-esteem is an idea borrowed from Karmi books. Modern culture promotes the idea of the rugged individual who makes his own way in life without depending upon others. A person with such a concept of life is described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita as a very great fool and rascal.
Yes, this we should propagate. This quote is very important.
प्रकृते प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकारविमूढात्मा कर्ताहम् इति मन्यते. A devotee is not self-confident because he knows that individually he has no power. Materialists who delight in apparently manipulating and controlling the material energy are actually manipulated and controlled by the material energy. Even if a person wants to desist from the vain effort to control material nature, he is so much accustomed to interfacing his senses with the sense objects of the material world that he cannot get free from the clutches of Maya by his own efforts. दैवी हि एष गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते मायाम् एतं तरन्ति ते. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. The only solution is to surrender to Krishna. This entails taking shelter of Krishna and his representatives through the process of devotional service. A devotee is not so foolish to think that he can cross over Maya by his own efforts alone. He does not, therefore, cultivate self-confidence, but confidence in the mercy of Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Although thinking himself very small and insignificant, he is too much confident of the good wishes of Krishna and the Vaishnavas that he can move freely in this world, executing his devotional service without fear or discouragement. A devotee is certainly confident, but his confidence does not spring from a foolish sense of self-esteem, as does the misplaced confidence of the materialist. Indeed, a devotee does not cultivate self-esteem at all. Rather the opposite. A devotee thinks himself the lowest, meanest, and most sinful person within the 14 worlds. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, was certainly one of the greatest devotees of the time. Yet he wrote, Jagai madhai hoite muise papishto, purisher kit hoite muise logishto. I am more sinful than Jagai and Madhai, and even lower than the worms in the stool. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 5.205. Vaishnavas are certainly the greatest people in the world, but their greatness does not spring from a foolishly inflated false sense of prestige. Their greatness springs from their utter humility, submission to and dependence upon higher authorities. Materialistic people desire to develop self-confidence and self-esteem so as to become a success in terms of material achievements. It is those, however, whose consciousness is most far removed from such ambitions, whose only desire is to please the previous acharyas, who have no motivation for their own prestige or glorification, We embody the humility, tolerance, and pridelessness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Trinad Api verse. The conquering of many
who are
Trinad Api verse, who
who
are
are
empowered by Krishna and the Vaishnavas to make the most extraordinary achievements. For instance, a composition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is far more important and notable than the conquering of the many empires. Materialistic people will not recognize this. But for all their self confidence and self esteem, they have to end up being reborn as cats and rats. Whereas the humble devotee, by his utter submission and dependence upon the mercy of Vaishnavas, ultimately conquers Krishna and captures him within his heart.
okay, Prabhu. We'll stop here. It's already
Thank you,
9.
Prabhu.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we will stop here. Unless and until anybody has some question, we'll stop here. We'll continue from page number 151, 10th November 1998. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We'll stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sandebhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha dante dhaya tilakam patayornapatya कृत्वा च कक्षते हे साधव सकलम में विहाय दुराचकलतम चंद्र चरणे कृतांग हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे